Start off by letting you know we're recording. So this meeting is being recorded, and we want to welcome any new Bridge AOR members and our new affiliates. Thank you guys so much for showing up today. If you are in the room, we are happy to have you as a Bridge member, and we appreciate and respect each and every one of you. And we hope that you're able to learn something from our session today. I want to first start out with just introducing a few of our upcoming events. So in case you enjoy this one, you might also enjoy these other events that we have coming up. We have our Tipsy Putt fundraiser. We only have a few tickets remaining for those, so you might want to hurry up and snag your ticket. It's going to be tomorrow, and that is being hosted by the Community Foundation and the Affiliate Committee. And this is going to be our first big fundraiser of the year. You can enjoy unlimited golf for the first 3 hours at Tipsy Putt. And there's going to be other games that you can play there as well. And of course, just general open networking. And that is tomorrow, Thursday, April 27th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the tickets are $50 at the door. And if you buy them on pre-sale, they're only $40. So if there's any pre-sales left, go and grab those up. You can get the details for that event on bridgeaor.org, and maybe we'll put the link in the chat for you. And then we have our third Thursday hypnosis event. Yes, you heard that correct, hypnosis. Come and join the Education and Technology Committee for their monthly event. They are going to be having a conversation on how hypnosis can help you change your subconscious mind to help you as a realtor in today's ever-changing market. That is going to be on May 18th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And the tickets are also on the Bridge website. Then we are going to be bringing back an old event that we haven't had since pre-pandemic times, which is going to be at the Oakland A's Stadium. So you can join the YPN committee and the DEI committee at the ballpark for a fun night filled with sports. Go team. I understand what's going on, but I will be there just to have fun. And there's going to be fireworks at that game. And so it's going to be the Oakland A's versus the Astros. That's going to be on May 26th, which is actually my birthday. So come to my birthday party at the ballpark. And that is going to be at 5:30 p.m. The $40 ticket is going to include the game, your entry into the park, some food credit, and even an A's jersey. So if you do not have any A's gear, don't freak out. You can still come. And that's just $40 all inclusive there. Tickets for that will also be on the Bridge website. Okay, now thank you, Divina, for putting the link to the calendar in the chat. So click on that, check out our upcoming events, and we hope to see you guys for our virtual events, but also for some of our in-person events that we just named. So now we're going to go ahead and get into our session today. I want to welcome some of our speakers. We have Kieran Shenoy, who is our Government Affairs Director. Hi, Kieran. He's going to be here as a representative for the Bridge Association of Realtors. So if we have any questions on where Bridge stands, he's a great resource for us. We also have Michelle Plouse with the City of Albany. Hi, Michelle. Amon Reagan, City of Berkeley. Shayna Hershad Gold with the City of Oakland. And Philip Roca with PG&E. And I appreciate you guys popping up the speakers as I'm kind of announcing. That's really awesome. And then I'm going to call up one of our long-standing Climate Action Committee members, Arlene Baxter. Go ahead, Arlene, take it away.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Arlene Baxter, a founder of the Climate Action Committee of Bridge Association, and before that, founder of the Green Council, going all the way back to Berkeley Association of Realtors. I served for 2 years on the Green Council at CAR, the California Association of Realtors, and I was proud to actually have been the writer, the first author of the residential section of the NAR green designation, lo those many years ago. And I mention this because so much has changed over that time. And over 15 years, I actually included information about heat pumps then, but it was this very exotic and not very well-known technology. 3 years ago, our Climate Action Committee hosted the first event, and it was actually a power hour. It was the last one in person, February 2020, before the obvious happened and we were shut down from in-person events for a long time. And we used that same title that we hoped was a little catchy, Get Off Your Gas. And that event was in person at Bridge Association. We had a wonderful panel talking about the advantages of electric over gas in terms of cleanliness of the air, both in your home and for the planet. A lot of new information at the time. But 3 years ago, the technology, in fact, was very different. A year ago, we had an online power hour, just almost exactly a year ago. And we were very fortunate to have as our speaker someone who's known nationally and, in fact, an internationally respected expert in electrification. That was Sean Armstrong of Redwood Energy. And at that time, Sean focused on a couple of things, bringing us up to date about technology changes, the power of battery storage, but also he shared a kind of personal view of how he and a family of 5 live in an older home, which is a situation so many of us share, on a 60 amp panel in an all electric world. It was inspirational to hear that he could do induction and heat pumps and electric dryer without increasing the size of his panel. And that's something that we hope you will get more information about because of increased technology. It's changing very rapidly, like on-demand circuits, smart panels, 120 volt heat pump water heaters. So we're hoping you will hear just a little smidgen about that, and perhaps most importantly, get resources where you can do a deeper dive, because we don't have a lot of time today and a lot to cover. But those technologies are really on the cusp, changing quickly. And if you learn nothing else today, know that everything is changing fast. So a lot of information you've heard may be outdated. We are all realtors, and a key tenet of our business is full disclosure. So our Climate Action Committee wanted to make sure that we fully disclose that there are some challenges. A big challenge is lack of information. So we're hoping today we provide a lot of good information for you and at least inspire you to find out more. We also know there's some outdated and maybe not so great information floating out there among service providers, plumbers, electricians, HVAC providers, and we hope over time that they will also learn more and feel more comfortable with electric over gas. But another part of full disclosure is we know that there have been some challenges with timing of increasing panel size, for example, and getting increased service providing. So it would have been inappropriate for us to have a presentation without including our local service provider. So we're very grateful to Philip Roca to be a representative, just to give us some education about the system. So with that, I'm very grateful to all of the cities for focusing today on, as we look at Get Off Your Gas, to the importance that the cities see in this move as not just the only, but a very key part of their climate action plan. So I believe that our first speaker is going to be Shana Hirschfield Gold. And after she takes a sip of water, I'm going to turn it over to Shana. And thank you all to all of the presenters and all of you for joining us today.
Arlene, it's actually going to be me starting.
Oh, okay, my apologies.
Yeah,
switch gears.
Switch things around a little bit, but yeah, I'm going to start.
Welcome, Michelle.
Shana's going to go next. So yeah, thank you for the introduction. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Sorry, I'm a little bit new to this, but hopefully you guys can see my slide here. Does that work? All right, beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to start off and talk a little bit about electrification in general and why we're going all electric. Here we go. So I'll just start off with the basics of what is home electrification. And very simply put, it's the process of switching over the natural gas appliances in a home, such as a gas furnace or a gas water heater or a gas stove, to an electric version, such as a heat pump or heat pump water heater or induction stove. And full home electrification means that you have completely gotten rid of your gas usage and all of the appliances in the home run on electricity. So this example here is what a all electric home might look like with these various appliances throughout the house. And I could go on for a very long time about why we want to go all electric. But one of the big reasons, at least for us as people who work in climate and sustainability, is because this is really essential for reducing our carbon emissions. And, when you think about gas appliances, a gas furnace, no matter how efficient that furnace is, no matter how good it is, it's still going to be releasing carbon into the atmosphere. That's just how it works. And with an electric appliance like a heat pump, you can use a whole variety of energy sources to power that electricity. And so, here in the Bay Area, a lot of homes actually run on 100% renewable electricity, things like solar and wind. There's also, hydroelectric power. There's even like tidal and algae power that's coming out. We're constantly coming up with new renewable zero emission sources of electricity. And so if we switch our homes to that all electric model, they can be completely emission free, which is really powerful. There are also a whole bunch of other great reasons to go electric. For instance, it actually makes your home healthier. It improves indoor air quality because it's not combusting some pretty dangerous chemicals like gas appliances do. There's also a lot safer. Gas is pretty dangerous. It can explode and it can cause other problems. It can cause leaks. So there's a safety benefit. It's also much more efficient. The new electric appliances are 3, 4, even more times more efficient than gas appliances. So you're more energy efficient and you can often save money on utility bills. So I can go on, but lots of great reasons to go electric. And it's something that all of us in these various cities are working very hard on. And I want to talk a little bit about what this looks like on the ground, what these actual appliances are. So the first one we often talk about is heat pump HVAC systems. These would be a replacement for a gas furnace. And they're really amazing systems, actually. They provide both heating and cooling. So it's a heater and an AC in one unit. You can just kind of switch direction it goes. And they're 3 times as efficient as a gas furnace. They're really, really energy efficient. They use basically the same technology as a refrigerator. So a lot of people kind of say, oh, what is this heat pump thing? It sounds really confusing and complicated. Everybody has one in their homes. They use it to keep their food cold, so it's really just using that same technology for your entire house. And then people are also sometimes concerned. They hear, oh, it doesn't work when it's cold out and maybe it's not as good. There are heat pumps that work in sub-zero temperatures. They can be very, very powerful. And so here in the Bay Area, especially in our temperate climate, they're definitely capable of heating your house whenever you need it and cooling it whenever you need it. Sorry, went the wrong way here. Heat pump water heaters. Again, same type of technology, but this way working on water heaters instead. Another common misconception is that tankless water heaters are the best thing for the environment. And that's not true anymore. Heat pump water heaters, again, are using this renewable electricity. They're not combusting gas. They're also really, really efficient. I've seen some figures that they're 7 times more efficient than gas water heaters. I'm sure it depends, but they're very efficient. And as Arlene alluded to, they come in both 240 volt and 120 volt options, which means that you don't necessarily need to do big electrical upgrades to switch over to a heat pump water heater. And then induction cooking. people have strong feelings about their gas stoves. They love their gas stoves, which makes lots of sense. But induction cooking is actually an incredible alternative. It's actually, in a lot of ways, much more effective. It's more responsive and faster than gas stoves. It directly heats the cookware itself rather than the air around it, which means that it's safer because you don't have flames, you don't have a lot of heat coming off. It's really easy to clean with its flat surface. It's not releasing toxic chemicals. And a lot of professional chefs actually prefer induction. And I also prefer induction to gas, even though I'm not a professional chef. So these are just 3 of the big appliances that we're encouraging people to switch over. And, I'm trying to explain how it's not just about, reducing your climate impact, but there's so many benefits of going electric. These are really great technologies, and it's really offering a lot of value to a home, both in terms of utility savings, in terms of future proofing, in terms of just the quality of life, the air quality, and all of those things. So it's a great movement to switch from electric or from gas to electric. And electrification is also the future. So I'll turn it over to Shayna for a moment to talk more about this.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Can you go to the next slide, please? I would actually argue that electrification is the present. It's just we're at the early stages, but the rate of new heat pumps being sold, induction stoves being sold, homes fully converting to all electric or starting the process is ramping up faster than any of us could have imagined. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but what I wanted to share for right now is something that some of you may have heard about, which is a new rule from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, sometimes referred to just as the Air District. It has the very compelling title of Regulation 9 Rule 4 and Regulation 9 Rule 6. Catchy, rolls off the tongue. This just happened a few weeks ago. And basically, as Michelle said, the reasons for electrification are so many and varied, including healthier air, particularly healthier indoor air. In the past, the Air District primarily contained itself to looking at outdoor air quality, but there's more and more research coming out that shows that in many cases, indoor air quality can be actually more harmful, more polluted than the air outside. And so as more research started to come out about this, the Air District really took this on full bore and passed this kind of these 3 targets, like I said, about a month ago. So in 2027, the way that they have it written is that 0 NOx water heaters, basically that means only electric water heaters, can be sold or installed. Same thing for furnaces in 2029. And in 2031, that rule actually starts to expand out of just the residential sector to the commercial sector. I don't know how many of you in the room deal with commercial buildings, but it's just worth noting here that a lot of the more nitty-gritty policy processes are really split between residential and commercial buildings, as well as along a lot of other types of distinctions, because basically the use cases, the technologies, and the rate of technology development and availability is different across all of those sectors. So I want to underscore what I have written there in italics. There is no mandate for retrofit. This is basically when an appliance reaches the end of its life and needs to be reinstalled, or when someone just chooses to have one of these affected appliances changed in their home at these trigger dates. they will only be able to purchase an all-electric replacement. And I'll go a step further with just noting, what I have written kind of down at the bottom of this slide. There is a whole bevy of policies at the federal level, the state level, and locally across California that are looking at how do we facilitate this transition from gas to electric, and looking at when is it cost effective, and when are the technologies not just in existence, as Arlene was talking about and Michelle was pointing to, but when are they plentiful enough? And like I said, cost effective, that it makes sense to start phasing in these types of mandates. That is a major part of the analysis that goes into any type of policy like this being promulgated. So I'm quite sure that everybody here is aware of the new construction requirements that Berkeley and Oakland and many, many other cities across California have put into place, saying that all new construction needs to be all electric. One of the reasons that cities were able to take that step was because in our climate zones, it is cost effective to build all electric, as opposed to building with what's called two fuels, right? Dual fuel construction, i.e. having both electricity and gas. At this point, it costs more to build with two fuels than it does to build new with all electric. And so that's an important distinction. When you get to that point of saying, okay, all new construction is all electric, that sends a demand signal that tells the entire market, hey, this is where things are going. This is a transition that we can rely on. This is not just kind of a flash in the pan. The tech program is an example of one of many programs funded at the tens of millions of dollars annual level by the state that's focused on increasing knowledge among contractors and among retailers, especially focused on these heat pump water heaters and heat pumps for space heating and cooling that Michelle was talking about. And then there's also just a whole range of new research that, again, was referred to, and I'll get into this a little bit later, as will Phil from PG&E, but just about the many options that are out there these days to convert buildings to electricity without having to increase your electric panel size or increase your electric service. In many cases, of course, not all, but there are just more and more options for this. So I think I'm turning it back over to Michelle, and then I'll make a few more points later.
Yeah, thank you, Shana. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for all of that, Shana. And with that all in mind, I'm going to go ahead and talk about one of the main resources that we have available for you or your clients when you're trying to learn about electrification and actually do it. And that's the Switches On. This is a website that is really just a hub of information and resources. This is an example. This is what the homepage looks like. And under Learn More, you can click on electric appliances. There's also, news and blogs and that sort of thing. But there's actually pages that go through each of these appliances that I've talked about and more to talk about, the technology, the kind of FAQs, the misconceptions, all these things you might want to know about a specific appliance. And then you can also go into the Make the Switch section and find all of the incentives that are available, of which there are many, many, many incentives. That can get kind of complicated, so that's really helpful for that. And you can also find a contractor, and that's really helpful to find a list of contractors that are experienced in that specific appliance or job that you're looking for, and that are also able to get you all of the incentives that you want. And then it also has some more information about incentives and income qualifying options and all kinds of things like that. And one of the best tools that it has is that you can actually type in the zip code that you're looking at. And even under this home function tab, you can look at, ducted heat pumps, for example, or induction cooktops, or whatever it is you're looking for. And it will show you all of the incentive programs that are available in that zip code for that project, which is really, really helpful just to get your mind around everything. There are a huge number of incentive programs that are all kept up to date that the switches on just kind of coalesces into one. In particular, the tech program just relaunched yesterday with a $1,000 rebate for heat pump HVAC systems. So that's already on the website. There's also a variety of city programs that I haven't even put on this page because there's not enough room. So it's all here. This is really the best place to go to start out the electrification journey and just the knowledge gathering. And so with that, I'm actually going to transition to Albany specifically for a moment. As I think Arlene mentioned, I work for the city of Albany, and I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing for electrification in Albany. And to start out, we have a climate action and adaptation plan that that our council passed in 2019. It has a variety of goals, but one of them is to electrify 90% of residential buildings by 2045. That's a big goal. There's a lot of work to do to make that happen. And we have a few programs that are in place right now to work on that. One of them is a zonal electrification pilot project. This is something that's very new that hasn't really been done in any city so far, and we're starting to look into it. But trying to figure out if we can electrify a small neighborhood or a block kind of all together so that we can help PG&E reduce their investment in gas lines. We can actually cut off a gas line and make it so they don't have to spend a bunch of money replacing that line that's going to be used less and less and less in the years to come. So that's sort of one of our strategic ideas that we're working on. We also have a multifamily EV charging pilot program. We're helping a few apartment buildings install EV chargers for their tenants, which is particularly difficult in apartment buildings. We have an induction cooktop lending program, so people can sort of try before they buy. There are a few of these programs around in a variety of cities, actually. And it's really helpful for people to get a sense of induction before they make the switch. And then we also have a heat pump HVAC rebate program specifically for the city of Albany. I'll tell you a little bit more about that on this slide. So our eligibility is very broad. It's any new heat pump that's installed in Albany, as long as you apply within 4 months of getting your building permit. It can be any building type, any project type, any contractor. It can be combined with other rebates. So pretty much if you're putting a heat pump in Albany, you can get a rebate. And we have a variety of rebate amounts depending on your income level. And we have a panel upgrade bonus as well. So the maximum you can get is actually $5,000. Although more commonly people get $1,000 to $1,500. So yeah, it's another really great program, just again, adding on to all these incentives that just stack on top of each other. So for lots of programs, a lot of projects can get multiple incentive programs and get a lot of money back for these electrification projects. If you're interested in that specifically, you can go to albanyca.org/heat pumps. But yeah, just a quick overview of what we're doing in Albany, and I'll switch it over now to Shayna, who can tell you more about what's going on in Oakland.
Thank you, Michelle. So I realized that I didn't introduce myself before when I jumped in. I'm the City of Oakland's Climate Program Manager. Been with the city for about 9 years, and so I've gotten to kind of see the waves of how the city of Oakland and our region kind of work together to kind of just define how we are looking at the challenges that are facing us. And if you could go to the next slide, Michelle, I mention that because Oakland's focus is very much through a justice lens when we're talking about any and all climate or environmental issues. The same challenges, the same basic triggers that Michelle has been talking about But we really focus on the environmental justice and climate justice underpinnings of all of these things that we're talking about. So when I go out and talk to a community group about electrification, yes, the underlying science of the impact that natural gas has on climate doesn't change. But I always start with talking about health and safety and resilience. We know that children who grow up in homes with gas stoves are 40% more likely to develop asthma over their lifetimes. That is a staggering statistic. And my family actually purchased a home in Oakland. We moved from Oakland to Oakland, but a year ago we purchased a new home. And when we were on the hunt for a house, I can't tell you how many open houses and individual showings I went to where there was a gas stove, and there were folks, whether it was the agent or other folks at an open house, that were talking about making comments about the gas stove. And as we all know, most of those comments were positive. And I have 2 young children, and I have asthma in my family. I don't personally, but I have family members who have asthma. And I would go in there and I would look at this and I would say, here is a thing in a home that I'm considering buying that is going to non-trivially increase the likelihood that my kids will become really, really sick. That was my lens. And living here in Oakland, where we have the 880 freeway, we have, as we all know, many freeway corridors in addition to 880 that all kind of intersect here. We've got lots of industry, legacy, old and current industry. We have lots of public health threats here in Oakland. And we all know that those threats at a dramatic level disproportionately affect communities of color and low-income communities. It is absolutely imperative that we do what we can to reduce those environmental health threats where we can. And one of the places where we really can have a big impact is the indoor pollutants that are being released. So that's one reason that this is so important to the city of Oakland, to staff and our elected leaders in the city of Oakland. Resilience is another issue. I mean, obviously the Oakland fire of a few decades ago did not only impact Oakland, but it's something that is very, very present on the minds of, staff and elected leaders in Oakland. And once again, this is a justice issue, because if you lose your home or you have, a fire that affects part of your home or part of your family or part of your livelihood, who is most able to bounce back, to rebuild, to lean on family members or friends, or have the education to navigate the very complex bureaucracies of God forbid FEMA, if you have to access it to rebuild. That again is a set of abilities and remediation options that are just simply more available to people who already have more means and more resources. We've all seen various maps of sea level rise and what our region is going to look like in a few decades. I will note that map there in the upper right corner is a combination of, it's looking at in the blue areas, it's a combination of sea level rise with a storm surge and high tide, because that is the confluence of factors that cities need to think about when we're looking at our planning policies and our zoning policies. And frankly, this is exactly what insurance companies look at. And I'm actually sure that most of you, if not all of you, are way more in touch with what the homeowners insurance industry is looking at and concerned about than Michelle and I are, because it affects your livelihood on a daily basis. So insurance companies are less and less willing to lend, or at least to lend at favorable rates to people who are in areas that are more likely to be impacted by flooding, areas that are more likely to be impacted by fires. And indeed, cities themselves, local governments themselves, our bond ratings are under threat. And we're starting to look at, very imminently a time where, if cities do not have on the books very ambitious climate policies, our own ratings and insurance rates are going to be under threat, because this is absolutely the bottom line for insurance companies. So I just wanted to kind of underscore, again, it's the same set of issues. It's just kind of the lens through which we look at these in Oakland is very salient. So put another way, because I know I just kind of set these all up as negatives, right? Put another way, acting on electrification, doing what we can to equitably advance electrification actions and policies as fast as we can will improve public health for everyone, especially for those who need public health improvements the most, will increase health and, resilience and safety in our neighborhoods, in our homes, in the kitchens of restaurants, very, very dramatically, and will increase jobs. A study came out in 2019 by the UCLA Luskin Center. That's a major think tank, economic think tank, housed at UCLA, that showed that on an overall basis and an annual basis, the transition to electrification is going to increase jobs statewide, even after accounting for the jobs that will be lost in the natural gas realm. There will be an overall and an annual increase in jobs across the state. And that translates to, even at the, at our very local level, thousands of jobs every year, just in our teeny tiny region. That is a huge benefit from this work. So we could go on to the next slide. I'm going to go through this quickly because I know you saw this image on the right, but I just wanted to, along those same lines of, kind of this justice approach is the way I talk about electrification is I talk about holistic electrification. It's not just the appliance switch out. It's the holistic picture of those replacements plus energy efficiency, paying attention to the combined benefits of indoor air quality and comfort. And that means addressing things like, air sealing and asthma threats there, right? Reducing those environmental health threats. Are there mold issues or, mildew or asbestos? Or, what other challenges exist in our homes and in our built environment that can and really should, from an economic efficiency standpoint, be addressed anytime you're already going in and messing with the electrical system or opening up walls to install insulation. There are so many co-benefits, and there are so many ways in which we need to think about these projects as holistic health, safety, affordability, upgrade projects to the extent that we can. And so, the suite of incentives that Michelle was pointing to, almost all, and certainly when you stack those incentives, to use the term that Michelle used, that those do include incentives for addressing lead and asbestos and for energy efficiency and things like that really, again, make this kind of a holistic picture of benefits to our building occupants. Can you go to the next slide, please? So in terms of Oakland's process, Oakland City Council in 2020 set a target that by 2040, all buildings, all existing buildings in Oakland must be 100% electric, all electric, or, you know, completely free of fossil fuels. So at this point, we've got 17 years to get there. I talked earlier about the new construction requirements. So our new construction requirement has been in place for a little over 2 years. And since then, it's been a lot of community engagement and a lot of community education. A little over a month ago, we hit a point just of note where 100 local jurisdictions across the United States had put into place some sort of policy to encourage electrification. And back to Oakland, per our adopted Equitable Climate Action Plan, we're on the hook to bring a roadmap to council. This is something that I and my team are working on. We'll be bringing a roadmap to our city council for adoption, hopefully sometime by the end of this calendar year, kind of laying out the policy pathways and the resources needed to, again, as I said, equitably and holistically get to that 2040 target. And there is an asterisk there because for those of you who are, you know, tapped into the legal world, there was an opinion issued by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals last week that kind of calls into question some of the policy mechanisms that some cities have been leaning on to advance these policies. That is something that is still in process. If it comes up in the Q&A, that's great. I'm also happy to talk offline about it. But the bottom line of that is that it's still something that is very much in process. The city of Berkeley, which is where the lawsuit is happening, has issued public statements saying that we're still in process. You know, nothing is final. We're still continuing to enforce our ordinance. And so, you know, all I can say is there's a lot of movement, a lot of action, and also a lot of, well, let's kind of see where things go. Next slide, please. Okay. I am going to actually skip this slide because those points have been made. I would just kind of, Michelle was talking about, you know, all the different sources of clean renewable energy. And I don't think you mentioned, though you may have, and if you did, I apologize for repeating, but East Bay Community Energy, which of course supplies our electricity in this area, has committed to being 100% clean and renewable in their electricity mix by 2030. So in addition to the many other benefits we're talking about, the fact that they are committed to local generation development, local renewable electricity generation as much as possible means that we're really creating a virtuous cycle here in terms of, you know, those electrons, also in terms of jobs. That's all I'll say there. Again, this is something that, you know, Michelle covered very well before, but I do want to just kind of point to one program that we lean on very, very much, especially here in Oakland, which is one of East Bay Community Energy's many programs called Health eHome. That is an income-based program, so it's primarily targeted to low to moderate income homeowners, and supported by Block Power and a local Oakland-grown company called Revalue.io. This is really kind of a no wrong door approach to, again, holistic electrification. So it's a program that braids together the many resources and sources of funding, including the Alameda County Department of Public Health Healthy AC program, the Asthma Start program, lead abatement programs, as well as, again, the many electrification and energy efficiency rebates and programs. So this is something that has not zero, but low interest financing. Again, it's based on income qualifications, and it is a program designed to make it much, much easier and kind of a one-stop shop to give, again, more options to lower income folks. EBCE has lots of other programs and resources. Of course, the Switches On website is, statewide and has a ton of great resources. I would start there, as Michelle was saying. But EBCE's website is fantastic. And if you haven't, I would suggest perusing it a bit. They also have resources and grants for restaurants. EBCE also has an induction cooktop lending program. We have a few sites in Oakland where you can check out those induction cooktops. Same as the program that Michelle was talking about. So again, just so many supportive programs and resources. Let's see, we can skip this. You covered it. And yeah, I'll stop there. I'm sure there's much more we can cover later, but I'm going to hand it over to our colleague Ammon in the city of Berkeley.
Hello everyone, let me share my screen 1 second. I don't know if that's good. There's a leaf blower that just started in the background 10 seconds ago, so hopefully you don't hear that on here. Hi everyone, my name is Eamon Reagan, and I'm a sustainability coordinator with the city of Berkeley. And as many of you know, Berkeley, alongside these other jurisdictions, have strong climate action goals and commitments. And so similarly, we aim to be zero net emissions by 2045 and a fossil fuel free city. And we know that buildings are key to achieving zero emissions, especially existing buildings. And so in November 2021, Berkeley City Council adopted Berkeley's existing building electrification strategy, which lays out research and recommendations on how to address the climate crisis through beneficial electrification. And the strategy was developed with an extensive community input and applied an equity approach. So all people must have affordable access to health, comfort, economic, and resilience benefits of building electrification. But low income and other marginalized communities, and especially communities most impacted by climate change, must be prioritized. And so to ensure an equitable transition off fossil fuels, we developed equity guardrails, which serve as the foundation of the strategy and act as minimum standards that must be met for any proposed electrification policy to be considered. And to support our electrification strategy, in 2021, Berkeley City Council funded the Climate Equity Fund pilot program with $600,000 and a goal to provide climate and resilience benefits to low-income residents for building and transportation electrification. And one of the program areas within this pilot in this fund is a resilient homes retrofit program to support electrification of low-income multifamily housing. So now that's kind of the main kind of overarching strategy that our city has, and I'm going to shift to another program that's also kind of focused on building electrification, and that's BESO, the Building Emission Savings Ordinance. So BESO, a lot of you guys probably know this program, covers every building in the city and is a comprehensive program to help buildings save energy, decrease emissions, and transition off fossil fuels. And so BESO operates as two programs, and the one that you're most familiar with is our time of sale program for buildings less than 25,000 square feet, including single-family homes, which requires an energy and electrification assessment prior to listing a building for sale.
And Ammon, unfortunately, I'm going to stop you there just briefly. I've just learned that Phil Roca from PG&E needs to leave us very quickly. So if we could allow him to at least show his main slide and introduce himself, we may need to switch gears a little bit. So Phil, if you can just come on quickly before you have to leave.
Yes, I apologize. I was told this was from 12 to 1.
And you're correct. We started late and things are going, and we appreciate your being here.
Yeah, no worries. I'm always welcome to jump on the next one as well. I don't want to rush things. Are you guys able to see my screen, or is my screen not showing? Hold on, let's show this again. All right. So I am Philip Rocha. I am the service planning manager for the East Bay, Diablo, and Mission area. So pretty much everything in the East Bay area, all the way to Discovery Bay, Richmond, Oakland, all the way down to Fremont. We handle any customer-driven work. So as I listen to this and we talk about electrification and we talk about what it would take to change over those appliances, my employees and my team are those individuals that if you have to upgrade your panel, if you want to remove your gas service, we would be the individuals that walk you through that process. Currently, what I am putting up on the screen is our customer journey map. The customer journey map is something that you will get when you submit an application. It will give you a idea of what it takes to establish, renew, upgrade service within PG&E. These timelines are every area could be a little bit different. Some areas may be a little bit faster than others. Every project is different. If you're going single panel like for like just to upgrade it because your house is super old and you need to upgrade the guts of it and just put a like for like panel, that could be as easy as 4 to 6 weeks. Where if you have to upgrade your panel from a 100 amp because you live in an older building to a 200, 300, 400 amp service, there's a lot of things that get put into this that could either make this timeline long or make this timeline short. So PG&E, since 2019, historically, it has taken roughly 330 days to establish a new service. During COVID, there were a lot of developments. There were a lot of housing areas where we had to upgrade transformers. Transformers were in a high demand and were very hard to get, which did push out timelines a year and a half, 2 years, just because of transformer shortages, switchgear shortages. All of these things did play into effect where the data we are giving you guys as of today may make this a little bit longer, but they are starting to correct themselves. Transformers are not becoming an issue as much anymore. Switch gears still are a little bit of an issue if you have a larger project, but are slowly starting to not become an issue anymore. But in the end result is PG&E is starting to pivot to a customer on-time delivery. When you submit your application through the My PG&E portal, you will get introduced to an application verification team where they were asked for specific documents for your project. Usually it's your electrician or your general contractor that would do this, because the information we will be asking you guys for or asking the applicant for is very in the weeds, very need to know specifics, BTUs or amperage, KVAs, these things that most normal individuals, including myself, are still learning every single day. So usually it's that licensed electrician or that licensed general contractor that would be the one submitting the application for the residents and would be asked for during the application verification team. When we're going to the customer on-time delivery, during those initial conversations, we are going to ask the customer in reality, and it's not to say, hey, the customer needs this tomorrow. We need to be realistic. We're going to give you our current timelines for that specific area, maybe estimating timelines if it has to go through design, maybe dependency timelines. You know, some permits take a little bit longer in a certain city than others. It is really all dependent. And then our construction timelines, due to the storms for the first 3 months, have been a lot longer than what they should be. Usually on average, it is 4 to 8 weeks, really depending on the scope of the job. So what they'll do is they'll introduce you to this customer journey map. They'll give you an educated information based off of the area that you'll be working in. And then it's up to you guys to tell us, hey, like, we are trying to get this done in the next 6 months. Okay, so 6 months will be our date of record. And what we will try to do is we will try to prioritize that to hit that goal, to be able to support you guys as the customer. We're not going to hit that goal 100% of the time. We are trying to get better at this, and we are pivoting, and we are getting in line to be able, over the next 2 years, to be a better company for the customer, so that we are here for the customer. And that's my main job. So my main job is to talk to customers, frustrated customers that go through this process, and help them understand what's going on. So what we currently deal with is our current intake phase is up to the customer. If you are planning this, I would say plan it out right now about a year in advance, so that you know, hey, I can meet all of my milestones within that year. We give our employees up to 90 days to intake your information. So it is solely dependent on how fast your general contractor, your electrician, you as the applicant have that information. If you have it within 2 weeks, we will process the application, get it over to design within 2 weeks. At that 90-day mark, if you are not ready, we are at that point in time where we're gonna, sorry, we're gonna ask you guys to resubmit the application. Due to, we want to make sure that the customers that are ready are getting through this process as fast as they can. From there, our estimating timelines have been very far out. So if you upgrade from a 100 amp to 200 amp service, you guys are upgrading a significant load, and you help us identify that we need to upgrade our infrastructure. Or you have a really old house and you have a direct buried service, and there's no conduit for us to be able to upgrade that, that service wire, or the service wire above head needs to be bigger. Whatever the circumstance is that you need to go through design. Currently, our estimating design backlog is about 3 to 5 months. We're hopefully being out of that hole to where we should start estimating stuff within 5 to 6 weeks, which is a huge increase from where we currently have been within PG&E. And that is that customer focus, and we are doing everything we can to better this process for these customers. And then after we get through the design, you have paid the contracts, that's when we would get into our dependency phase. So at the bottom, you guys would understand what these dependencies are, what they could take. This is encroachment permits. If you have a pole out there and we need to talk to AT&T or cable, we have certain criteria and tariffs where it takes an X amount of time. All of these things play into effect. Once we clear all those dependencies, you're about 4 to 8 weeks out, depending on that specific yard and what their current resources are regards to construction. So what I want to do for you guys, and for you guys to educate your applicants and your customers and who you guys are working with and who you're advocating for, give yourself time. Can be a very frustrating process. My team is here to help you guys, and we are here to help get to the future, and the future is looking bright, and we are doing everything we can to be a more customer-centric company, and making sure that these processes get better for you guys as individuals. So that's the customer journey map in a nutshell. It is very detailed. I have shared it with Arlene. She's more than welcome to give this to you guys so you guys can get to understand. There is the caveat at the top that says the timelines expressed in this document are typical and should not be viewed as absolute. You will know more absolutes once you get that job owner, once you have that conversation, and once you get a better understanding of what the scope is. The scope could be small, the scope could be big. Every job is going to be different, and that is going to help depend on how this process goes out. Another thing to help you guys, as Michelle does for the city of Albany and what you guys have for resources, PG&E also has a resource, a handy guide to home electrification for single family homeowners. Arlene will send out this link. This link will give you the ins and outs on what you should look at, how to evaluate the project, what this project would entail, and just give you a really high level overview to help you help your customers, and you guys are educated to understand what this takes to get from point A to point B, and what you could do to be successful and help with the electrification of your current property. So that is what I have for now. I do have to leave. I do apologize. If you guys have any questions, feel free. Arlene can give out my email. It's everywhere anyway. So you guys are more than welcome to reach out.
Thank you so much, Philip. And I apologize that we had to cut you off, and also to Emmett for putting you in there, but really appreciate you're giving us, frankly, a candid view of what the timelines are. As you said, they're longer than you want them to be. They're longer than we want them to be. At least now people can be informed consumers, which is really our goal. So thank you so much. I will share the links to those documents, and really appreciate your being here.
Yep, thank you. And you guys have a good weekend.
I will put those links in the chat, and we are planning to send out a follow-up after this event. So we will make sure that everyone gets those documents. And now, Emmett, back to you. You were just wrapping up about BESO.
Sounds good. Let me just finish up now. There's only like two or three slides left, and this will kind of help share like how BESO will be changing and what BESO is doing to address electrification. And so in 2020, it basically was amended and we really changed the program to align with Berkeley's electrification goals. And so one of those is we exempt all electric buildings from BASO altogether. So if a building's all electric and they've completely transitioned off fossil fuels, they no longer need to complete the assessment requirement. Another path for building owners in lieu of an assessment is to complete an electrification upgrade. So if a building transitions a gas water heater or a gas furnace to an electric heat pump, then that satisfies the basic requirement and they also don't need to complete the assessment. And then the last piece that we also did was to include a fuel source disclosure. So now whenever the basic responsibilities defer to the buyer and you don't have that assessment available to potential buyers, we now have a fuel source disclosure, which provides a fuel source for each end use, an overview of electrification and its benefits, as well as the incentives and rebates available for switching off fossil fuels to clean electricity. This way buyers have some information upfront about the home since that assessment isn't provided in the disclosures. And then the last piece, which was also included in the amendment, was a directive from City Council to develop energy upgrade requirements at time of sale. And so BASO this far has relied heavily on voluntary upgrades, but more action is needed in order to achieve our climate action goals and further our citywide building electrification efforts. And realtors, all of you have been our partners with BASO and before that with RICO, and we want to continue to work and collaborate with you as we develop BASO 2.0. And so we've met with your Government Affairs Committee earlier this month, and we'll be holding several public meetings over the summer. And these are opportunities for you all to participate in the next stage of BASO's development as we develop energy upgrade requirements. And the last thing I wanted to mention was the East Bay Green Homes Tour. And so for the last few years, Berkeley, alongside many other organizations, have helped create Green Home Tours, which are free virtual tours for Bay Area homes. And Bridge Association of Realtors has been a sponsor of the event since the first year. They are a chance to learn from your Bay Area neighbors on what they're doing with their homes to combat climate change, improve air quality, generate clean electricity, and move towards safer, healthier, and greener future. So on Saturday, May 20th, will be the 2023 East Bay Green Home Tour, where you'll get the chance to virtually tour 7 green homes throughout the East Bay. And you can register for the event on eastbaygreenhome.com.
Thank you so much. And let me just mention that one of the, that's a video tour. About a dozen homes are going to be featured. And one of them is a video that I put together with Paul Barazza, who is a member of our Climate Action Committee and a Bridge Association affiliate, at his own home. And it's a great way for people to see in real life a really typical example of an older East Bay home. It was a 1912 bungalow. It went from standard problems with a small panel and all gas appliances, and Paul has made it net zero. And so in our 12 minutes of fame, you'll be able to walk through the house, see how he moved to heat pumps, how he smartly ducted, maintaining the architectural integrity of his 1912 bungalow, moved to induction cooktop. His wife loved her Wedgwood stove, just like I have loved one and others have, but she was convinced once she saw a CO monitor showing just how much noxious chemicals were going into her kitchen. So that is part of the East Bay home tour. I'm also going to put in the chat information on an in-person tour, and that is part of the bringing back the Natives California plant tour, featuring on Green Home Features. And that one's actually live, and you'll be able to, again, see in person examples of homeowners, including Kathy Kramer, who's the founder of the Bringing Back the Natives. She was one of our speakers for climate action earlier. She gave a great example of how she'd loved her Wedgwood stove for many, many years. She had moved to solar, she'd moved to heat pumps, but God, she loved her Wedgwood stove until her contractor said, you know, Kathy, those things are dangerous. They should be outlawed. And she was convinced. And now she has an induction stove that she loves. As our earlier speaker said, it's a very emotional and personal decision. So it won't work for everyone, but just think about it. I'm going to look and see if there are questions in the chat. I think mostly we're going to have a lot of good information, and I apologize, this obviously went long. I'm going to copy now and put in the chat the information about native plants and the tour that is coming up. And then there's also the information about the Green Homes tour that is virtual. If there are questions, since we're really running late, if you have questions that you would like any of our speakers to answer, you can put them in the chat, you can share them with me. And I also want to make it clear that all of our Climate Action Committee members, from our chair, Megan Miko, Bima Sheridan, Catherine Kruger, who are also on, Derek Holt, who is a Bridge affiliate involved in solar, Paul Barazza, Josh Dickinson. We are all more than happy to share our expertise, our passion, our enthusiasm, and our frank and candid experiences. There are some challenges, and that is just the way it is. And you heard some of them about planning. Yes, you're going to have to plan maybe a year in advance as you think about getting off your gas. But we hope you've been inspired, at least given enough information to want to seek out more resources, make your own opinions about what makes sense in your home. Just want to allow our speakers any final notes. Michelle, anything you want to mention before we thank you for your participation?
Well, Arlene, I had a quick question for
Absolutely.
some of the panelists. Hi, everybody. I think that most folks know that, Bridge, and I bring this up simply because Shana had brought up the rule change at the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And as many of you know, on the call, Bridge AOR joined a group of local realtors associations in opposing that rule change. And that was driven not by, whether or not the association believes in the science behind making that switch to electricity, but driven more out of a concern for seniors on fixed incomes or moderate and low income households. And that kind of speaks to what Shana was talking about in terms of equity and ensuring that there is an equitable transition for all parties involved. And mostly because, this is on a truncated timeline. I mean, this is really quickly approaching us within 4 years. And, just that instance in which somebody might, all of a sudden have a water heater that craps out, and hearing about PG&E's timelines, it is somewhat concerning for the association. So we took a stance to oppose that rule change, but that was also partially based on the cost estimates that were being thrown around at the Bay Area Air Quality Management District meeting, as well as by staff for the Bay Area Quality Management District. And they based a lot of those numbers on a national study that was from the Berkeley National Laboratory. And that brought the cost estimates up down, frankly. So we were wondering, if those cost estimates in terms of a regional look actually go up. We know that there's a 2019 Energy and Environmental Economics report that looked regionally at the costs and sets that cost at anywhere from $7,000 to $20,000 for all-in costs for some of these upgrades. So I was wanting to know if you guys have looked at some of those studies and how we could possibly tackle that in the future, and whether or not there are technologies that might bring that cost down within that 4-year window that the Bay Area Air Quality Management District has given us.
I can say, sorry. I can say I haven't looked at a ton of studies in particular. I've looked at a few. I've also looked a lot at our own permit data internally, where we have some cost estimates, which has been really helpful. And one thing that I've seen is that the cost variation is massive. There are heat pumps that I've seen installed that cost the same or less than gas furnaces. I've seen some heat pumps installed that were much more, and same with heat pump water heaters. I think it comes down to, a lot of questions about the specifics of the home. Some homes are more expensive to upgrade than others. Some homes haven't been upgraded in a really long time. And then there are also a lot of folks who choose to go for a more expensive option because they want something in particular. And so it's a little bit difficult sometimes to figure out exactly what those costs are. And yeah, it can just really vary a lot. It's hard to give someone a good estimate without knowing what their situation is. But I do think that in overall terms, the costs are dropping as this becomes more and more and more common, as the heat pumps are on the market, as there are more and more options on the market, as there are smaller options or 120 volt options becoming more available, as contractors get used to installing these things and it's just sort of a run of the mill thing for them. So I think, we've seen this progression happen really, really quickly. In 2021, a quarter of HVACs in Albany were heat pumps. In 2022, it was half. So the transition is going quickly and the costs are already starting to drop. And, we're working hard to try to give the incentives and also build up that market to make those costs naturally decline even faster. And I can see Shayna looking like she has things to add to it, so I'll let you jump in if you want.
Michelle, you're great. I think that was a wonderful answer. And I was thinking, along the same lines, where the conversation was, in 2018, 2019, to where it is now. Arlene, it's like what you were saying, in your introduction, things are so different now. And part of that is, the changing awareness, the proliferation of new technologies that are coming out. I mean, just in the last year, we saw that 120 volt, as you mentioned, water heater and 120 volt induction stove come on the market. Now, the Air District's rule, doesn't touch stoves, but just the fact that, this time a year ago, there wasn't an option unless you got a single burner or a two burner countertop induction hob unit that you could just plug into the wall. If you were looking at a full size, induction stove, or even an old school electric coil stove that nobody really wants, you were talking about having to run a 240 amp circuit into your kitchen. The fact that we now have that 120 volt, induction stove with a built-in battery, so you don't have to deal with time of use charges, that is a game changer. And the pace of those coming out in 4 years, right? The pace of acceleration, we all know that principle, the pace of acceleration just increases over time. Who would have thought 3 years ago that we would have the Inflation Reduction Act with the massive number of tax credits that are available, through that source? So the rate of change of, technologies and new resources, rebates, incentives, tax credits coming online is just accelerating things. Michelle gave that example of a quarter of permits to now 50% in Albany. I will also say that electricity and gas rates are a big factor here. Now, we all know, maybe we don't, that gas rates are artificially low, right? Gas as a fuel is heavily subsidized at multiple levels of government. Rates, per the California Public Utilities Commission, gas rates and electricity rates are both going up, but gas rates are going up at a much faster clip. And in a few years, after that 2027 date, but in a few years, they're going to actually outstrip electricity rates. So we're getting there steadily, and all signs, 100% of the information out there says that that trend is not going to change. And so when you start putting all of these things together, as well as the fact that I will say the conversations that Michelle and Ammon and I and our colleagues, the conversations we were having 5 years ago, we were saying, well, everybody's going to need to upgrade to 200 amp panels, and we need to incentivize that. Wow, were we wrong? And Arlene, I'm so glad that you mentioned Sean Armstrong and his 60 amp panel with a family of 5. The fact that we've got circuit sharing devices, the fact that, so that you could plug in your electric vehicle and turn on your electric dryer at the exact same time, and you will have pre-programmed that circuit sharing device to say, well, which one of these, goes ahead and the other one turns off. That is a game changer. So as these things are coming out, I think that 2027 is actually a very conservative estimate of, what we're going to be ready for. And the final thing I wanted to say, Kieran, you mentioned seniors on fixed incomes. Oakland and Berkeley and pretty much, I think Albany, I think all cities have some kind of residential rehab program, funded through the city, often in partnership with an outfit like Habitat for Humanity or Rebuilding Together, that helps seniors, disabled folks, low-income homeowners, other, homeowners on fixed incomes. We're talking, house rich, cash poor kind of folks who don't have the financial means but have serious health and safety upgrade needs in their homes. These programs exist. They have not, up until now, been very well integrated with electrification and energy efficiency. Berkeley, Oakland, Fremont, and Hayward partnered this year to get a $1 million grant to figure out how we can, and we're working with Habitat for Humanity on this, how do we efficiently incorporate electrification and energy efficiency upgrades into these programs. So Kieran, to your point, we're very much focused on, as I said before, the needs of these, kind of more challenged residents, whether they're low-income homeowners or renters. And, we're looking at how do we build this plane while we're flying it? And I hope that we've kind of demonstrated that we're really on the way in terms of, all of the policies and technologies and incentives and things that are out there and increasing all the time. But we also can't ignore the fact that the longer you stay with gas in your home, the more health threats you are being exposed to. And in earthquake country, right, the more you are facing the threat of fires and explosions. So it's a lot to balance, and we're working night and day, to get to that environmental and climate justice place as fast as we can.
Thank you, Shana and Michelle, and thank you, Kieran, for bringing up that really important question. It's a valid one and one of the challenges that we face, but I'm glad that the city's got an opportunity to share with our realtor family their reactions. I think the key takeaway here is what we started with, is just how quickly the technology has changed from 15 years ago when I first wrote the NAR Green Council green designation material, just night and day different. But some things are still the same. Air sealing, building sealing, behavior changes, energy efficiency is still a key tenet. But now the technologies we have and are going to have in the future are remarkably different. And one we haven't even mentioned, because it's so much on the cusp, is bidirectional charging. That is going to be another game changer, which will also reduce our demand with people who have, like I have solar, will be able to not increase our panels so much as bidirectional charging becomes a reality. There's already some out there. So we're running out of time here, but what I would leave everyone with is that, to our realtors, be the source of the source. Be curious, go out there and find out more about the resources available to you and your clients. We've already mentioned that there are great information through nonprofits like the Switches On and Bayren. There are also some profit sources of people who will guide your clients through an entire electrification plan. You're free to reach out to me, to Megan, to all of the members of our committee, all of our panelists who have shared their information, and we will go out with more information. I urge you, this weekend, there is information on native plants and native plant tour, And then coming up in May, your opportunity to see both in person and online real case examples here in the East Bay of moving from your gas, hoping you will be inspired to get off your gas and move to cleaner, safer electric. And with that, I want to thank Kieran, Michelle, Ammon, and Shayna for being here, and for all of you who are here today, and for all of you who I hope will be listening to the recording when we put it up in about a week or so. Thank you so much, and have a clean, electrified future. Thank you all.